Next question is about the general topic of discipline, and I wanted to ask you if you naturally consider yourself a highly disciplined person, but you kind of alluded to that in an earlier answer. But can you talk more about the topic of discipline and how either you found motivation to practice guitar, or how somebody else, like your guitar students, how do you advise them to stay motivated to practice guitar?
Well, let's talk about I guess the discipline part first. I'm not as disciplined of a person as some people assume that I might be. I'm not necessarily undisciplined, I'm just not as disciplined as one might think. So what does that mean? It means that I'm a human just like everybody else, and you have things that you want to do and things that you don't really want to do. You have things that are fun to do and things that they're not real fun. It's real work. I mean, work. And I like most people. I think I gravitate towards the things that I like to do and I enjoy doing. And it's real easy to kind of put off those things that you don't want to do and so on. So and this is just my natural tendency to be that way. Okay, so it became important. This is going back maybe 10, 12 years ago, for me to realize that the things that I'm avoiding, the hard work type things, are not allowing me to really enjoy the things that I want to do. And this goes back to what we talked about earlier, where when I was growing up playing guitar, I would focus on something very specific, a specific technique or an element of technique or whatever, and develop that skill. But then because I lacked the know-how and the understanding and also just the raw discipline to develop other areas, it was dragging down the things that I had worked so hard to develop. They just became kind of useless because they couldn't be fully applied. So then I started focusing on that and realizing that these fun things, which I thought were fun and they were fun at the time, they're not so fun anymore because I just can't freaking use them. Okay, so I asked myself, well, what would make that fun? How could I have more fun again at practicing guitar, developing my skills, learning more? And the answer always came back to, well, I've got to take care of these weaknesses that are dragging down my strengths. Not all weaknesses, but the weaknesses that are relevant, the ones that are limiting the ability to implement to apply the strengths. So when I focused on that, that's what helped me to be motivated to focus in those areas that I didn't particularly find the most enjoyable, but there really wasn't any much choice anymore. I couldn't put it off any further. It was time to pay the piper, and that time is right now. So that's when I finally, I think, found inside myself the self-motivation to do the things I didn't particularly want to do, make that right choice, and then it all came together. Once I started focusing on those things, not only did it allow the strengths to be utilized and therefore more fun, but I actually liked the process of improving on these weaker areas, and there was a great sense of personal accomplishment and fulfillment from doing that I didn't know would be there. I suppose looking back at it now, that would be it sounds pretty dumb to think that I wouldn't have imagined that would be there. It's so obvious looking back, but at the time I just wasn't thinking about it in that way. Mm-hmm. And so that's about the discipline. In terms of being motivated or motivating others, the more that you can go back to your goal, whether it's my goal for myself or a student's goal for him or herself, that's the source of all motivation. Okay, so the only reason why you do or don't do something is because you want to gain pleasure in something or you want to avoid pain in something. Those are the only two reasons that motivate people to do or don't do anything. So the more that I can get the students to focus on their specific, unique goals and then show them that I understand what your goals are, I know how to help you to accomplish those goals, and I know the roadblocks and the challenges along the way, and I'm going to help you to surpass those things. We're going to work together on this. If I can get them to work with me on that process from there it's easy because they're going to be motivated. They're going to see the light. They're going to do it, and they do it, and they get the result. And then when they see the results, that starts to snowball on itself, and then they become more motivated because then they start to believe in themselves and in the process that we're going through, and it makes it relatively easy to accomplish those things than if they don't have that. If you don't have that as the foundation, you really don't have anything. You're asking somebody to do things that you know they don't want to do, and there's not a strong enough core reason behind it to drive them forward. So I think that's really one of the keys there to really getting people to do things that helps them.
Right. Yeah, I agree that step is very important. Cool. When you were learning to play guitar back in your younger years, did you ever have a sense of overwhelm from being surrounded by too many guitar practice materials that you wanted to work on or needed to work on? And how did you decide which of those materials were worth your time to focus on and which were not?
In the beginning, I didn't have a teacher, so there was no clear direction at all. I was just guessing about what to do, and it was a lot of trial and error, and there was a lot of error in that trial and error process. So a lot of time was wasted. The truth is that in addition to not having the direction, I just simply wasn't qualified to make my own choices. I mean, I tried to, and I think like most people, when you start out, you think that you can, make your own choices there and make your own decisions about, what you should be doing. But no one really asks, what should I do? They ask, what do I want to do? And that leads them to a whole different set of answers than what should I be doing to reach the goals that I have. And most people, they don't ask themselves, what are my goals? With the students that I teach, the first thing I ask them about is their goals. And for many of them, that's truly the first time they've ever really, really thought about that in any kind of specific detail. So if people aren't naturally asking themselves that question, how are they ever going to get there? And even if I or whoever else, when starting out or even an intermediate level, is trying to ask the right questions and has the right questions in mind, at that level, we're just not capable of really understanding what does it take to reach these goals. What are the obstacles? What are the sources of the problem? Why are those problems or obstacles there? And also, we don't know what we don't know. So we don't even realize some of the challenges that are in front of us or what the other possibilities are about what to do. And as I also mentioned earlier, I was pick specific things to work on, but I wasn't at all thinking about tying it all together. So it took me years to kind of figure out the obvious thing, like, hey, you got to tie all this stuff together if you want to be a guitar player. And even if I had thought of that back then, I really wouldn't have known specifically how to do that in a way that won't waste years and years of more trial and error. I didn't have a proven process to put that all together at that time. That developed much, much later. And that's also, as one of the things that I focus on when teaching students is, integration of techniques and learning in a more broad a range of things that are goal-driven, specific to that person, and not just stuff that doesn't relate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically it.
Okay, very cool. How have the advancements in modern technology affected your guitar practicing throughout all the years that you've been learning to play guitar in the past, and how you practice guitar now? Do you spend a lot of time using your computer or computer programs when you practice guitar, or not?
When I was starting off learning, I didn't have a computer, and technology wasn't an issue. It wasn't part of it. I was learning from magazines and friends and stuff like that. I don't think technology really had any impact one way or the other. And even if I would have grown up playing guitar, as people do now at the age of the internet, the only thing that's really done for most people is given them more choices, to have access to more information, which is not necessarily, it's not as good as people think it is. Nothing wrong with having access to information, but again, what do you do with all that information? Which information is right for you? It's easy to choose what you want to look at, what you want to read, what you want to watch. But, unless you're an expert in, training people to become great guitar players, you're just guessing with more information. Okay, I was guessing with less information, but it was still guessing. Okay, so in terms of if or how I would use technology now, I don't practice that much with the computer, but I do sometimes. As you know, I have this website called Practice Generator, practicegenerator.com, which is basically a web-based software program used to create customized schedules. And I've used it for my students, and people all over the world use this now. And even though I developed the program, I didn't do the programming, but the whole concept is based on my thinking for making the most efficient and effective practice schedules for people to follow to reach specific goals. I tend to not always follow my own advice. So I've been, in the last few years, forcing myself to use the practice generator just like the students do, because if I don't, I find, even now that, I may do this thing over here because it's fun, and I may do this thing over here because it's easier, or whatever, and, I can get away from staying focused on what do I really, really want to achieve at this point in music and with the guitar. And in order for me to do that, I need to actually walk the walk. I need to practice what I preach. I can't be telling other people to do it and then I don't do it myself. I want to get the same result that everyone else wants to get, which is the attainment of your ultimate goals, whatever that might be. So I use that as a way to. I use the practice generator as a way to help me stay on track and focused on whatever the specific goals that I have for myself at the time, and don't wander and get off track. And that's helped a lot. As I said, I'm not the most self-disciplined person in the world, so sometimes I need to find ways to help myself to stay on track, and that's helped me a lot.
Very cool. Okay, shifting gears now into a more technical topic. When you practice guitar technique, what are some of the approaches that you use to develop your speed so you can play cleanly at those faster tempos?
My approach to that in the past is different than my approach to that now. In the past, it was a lot of repetition and a lot of, taking something and practicing it, working on the technical details, trying to identify what the flaws were, seeking outside help at the time to get some feedback on what those flaws were, and then how to correct it. And I would practice over and over and over again, and just basically just wait for the days on the calendar to go by when now these problems don't exist anymore, and everything is cleaner and it's faster and it's more consistent, etc. But now my approach is different. It's really about feeling. Okay, when you're playing something this is especially true at a high speed, and you're trying to articulate everything cleanly and play consistently well. When you can do that one time, if you pay attention, you'll understand and you'll notice what that feels like. Okay, when the two hands are totally locked in and in sync, that feels a certain way. Okay, when you're not locked in, you don't have that feeling. Now, in order to get that feeling, you have to be able to play it cleanly and perfectly at least once, and then pay attention to it. But until you're able to do that at least once, what I'm saying won't make any sense to you because you have never experienced yet that feeling. Okay, you have to do it first, perfect it, feel the hands and yourself totally locked in, pay attention, notice that feeling, memorize it, and then it's so much easier to do it again and again and again because you have instant feedback for yourself of, okay, does this feel like it's locked in or not? Am I not feeling that? So, as I said, once you can do it right once and memorize the feeling, it'll be easier to just focus on, if I'm not feeling it, why am I not feeling it? which hand is not locked in here. It becomes easier to correct it. And so really the goal is to just seek out that feeling of being locked in, and that's what you focus on. I'm not focused on all the tiny technical details of trying to develop the skill to do it right one time, because I don't know yet what that feels like.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this interview, make sure to check out other interviews that I've done with other top-level guitar players on the topic of practicing and the methods they used to become great guitar players. Go to this link right here, check out all the interviews there on that page, and apply the concepts in them into your playing and practicing to become a better guitar player a lot faster. Have fun playing and practicing guitar, and I'll see you in the next video.